And welcome. We're on page 76 of the journal today. You choose to have that open for some notes or for some sketches. We're going to start this afternoon with a couple of different announcements, just opportunities coming up for you. So I offer an opportunity to make up discussion posts. So this is the first of those opportunities. I'll reopen all of the Canvas discussions on Monday of next week, and they'll be open through 11:59 p.m. of Sunday of spring break. So if you have missed any discussion posts, either your own reflection or responding to someone else, this is your chance that you can get those made up. I know that it's a new system for some of you, for some of us, for me too, in some ways. So this is a chance to make those up. They'll be counted in your final grade. Also for this week, according to chapter 5 or following through chapter 5, your assignment in your journal this week is to tape some paper together. You're going to tape paper together, 3 sheets of it, side by side by side like this. And then you're going to be making a concept map. This is an example of a concept map based around human exploration, so one type of concept map. And you're going to be taking the concepts, the ideas, the topics that you read through chapter 5, and you're going to be making yourself a map. Yours is going to look more like this. So as you tape your papers together and you start connecting concepts, we use concept maps in BiSci because it's an interesting way to make connections. And what's happening on our planet today, we can't pull apart any one separate thing and understand that it is alone, right? We've talked about how we are never alone. We have all these other beings, all of these other connections to the world around us. And so that's what you're going to be doing with chapter 5, is outlining in this way where you see different connections. If you like to use different colors to represent things and you have markers on hand, feel free to do this. Make this as creative and as interesting and as helpful for yourself as possible. I have to admit that once I learned this technique of concept maps, I've become kind of a concept map nerd. I really love this. This technique helps me. Actually, I've been journaling this way. So if I experience this one thing and I feel this way about it and it creates this kind of reaction, emotional reaction in me or physical reaction, then it helps me to map my own emotions and connections and relationships. And so I have found concept mapping helpful not just for note taking and understanding like class concepts, but also for understanding myself. So I hope that you enjoy this process of concept mapping and find it useful. There will be opportunity to do it again later in the semester. If you find that it's interesting and useful to you, there will be another opportunity to choose this way of note taking later on. So that's concept mapping. So where we are today is thinking about oceans, and what the ocean can tell us about the health of Earth. This photo was taken by William Anders in 1969, the Earthrise photo, the perspective of Earth from the moon when people first walked there. So understanding as we look at our planet from this kind of distance, right? The blue planet, so much of our planet is covered in these waters, right? In our planet's first 500 million years or so, the torrential rains that rained down and covered the low spots with water. You know, some places in the ocean over 2 miles deep as they filled up with water. And at that time, Earth was mostly covered with water, except the volcanic islands that were raising up. And as those volcanics action was blasting off inside the center of the Earth, creating the land masses that we know today. So it's interesting that at first the ocean may not have been very salty. That's one of my deep associations with the ocean, something that makes it special, that salinity of the ocean. But over time, rain and wind and ice and the wave action, the surf weathered that land and melted the salts out of the land. And that's how the oceans came to be salty. When seawater evaporates, the salt remained behind, continually accumulating. So the ocean is this hybrid brew of atmospheric, partly terrestrial in composition. It's the great vessel where all of these elements come together, where this magic is happening. And so I'd like you to, for our presencing today, just take a moment and pay attention to the ebb and the flow of your breath, the in and the out, and taking a moment to see the parallels between the ebb and flow of our breath with the ebb and flow of the oceans. Creates the in and the out. It's this really beautiful rhythm of life. As we take air in, take air out, as the waves go in and the waves go out. So in this state of parallel with the ocean, I'd like you to consider, what is your relationship with the ocean? How do you feel about the ocean? So take a quiet moment of considering the question, considering it in your head and your heart and your gut. And then talk to your partner about it. Share your relationship stories. I would love to hear a couple of relationship stories. Who wants to talk about your relationship with the ocean? Where's the microphone? There we go. Oh, good. There you go. Thanks.
Like a total of 3 years, so very comfortable. Counting the amount of different kinds of like animal life, fantasy penguins up close to Chile, just yeah, just living on the ocean, like
Yeah. How do you feel about all of that experience there?
do they swim out in the water and see nothing but that, and then you go through the waves within the ship, moving the ship. Depending on the weather, you'll see schools of dolphins. You'll have a hard day and look at the sunset. There's no light pollution, so you just look up at the stars and there's nothing to drown out the stars. It's really nice.
Soothing. I love that word that you use. Thank you. Yeah. Who else would like to speak to the ocean?
Hi, so I've only ever seen the ocean one time. A lot of people at Penn State have seemed to vacation towards the ocean a lot, and so that's kind of surprising to most people. But it's really intimidating, especially seeing just how vast it is. But
Yes.
with that intimidation comes a lot of awe and respect, especially
Mhm.
knowing how interesting the ocean's ecosystems are beneath the surface. It'd be really cool to go again and see more of that. Um, but the first time I saw it, definitely a little scary to see how big it is.
Absolutely. So intimidating and a sense of awe at that vastness. Excellent. What else?
I grew up like an 8 hour drive away from San Diego, California. So I spent like every summer break, no matter what, driving up and down the PCH, the Pacific Coast Highway. And for me, when I think about the ocean, California's oceans are really, really cold
Yeah.
and they're not always friendly. And so I've always stayed more away, like not in the ocean, but like walking
Mhm.
along it. So for me, it's the air,
Mhm.
it's the salt air. Like
Mhm.
there's nothing that compares to it,
Yeah.
especially when you're just like driving with your windows down. So to me, it's like magical, I guess.
Magical. Hmm. Good. There's one more up here in a moment. Yeah.
I live right by the beach and I like grew up right by the beach. So when I'm at home, like I see the ocean every single day. Um, so it's kind of like a really big way that I like connect with nature and it's kind of just feels like really like comfortable and like home to me is being by a beach and being by like a huge body of water. So since being like at Penn State, I've kind of had to find other ways to connect with nature and with the earth, which has been kind of a challenge, but I mean, I've enjoyed trying to find other ways to do it, but I'm really excited to go home and see the ocean again. So,
Sweet. Thank you. And then there's one more up here, Lily. Mhm.
I think my relationship with the ocean was like expanded upon because in Honduras, we have one of the biggest coral reefs. So I went scuba diving there and it was just like a whole other ecosystem, like living in a new world, like swimming around with the fishes and they interacting with me was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Connection, right? This kind of, it can be scary, intimidating, all the uncertainties of the ocean, the power of the ocean, and yet it's infused with this magical, comfortable sense of home and mystery and excitement. And so many emotions, right? Whether you've been to the ocean or not, there are a lot of connections that we have. So these are the Polynesian sailors from many, many years ago that discovered islands out in the middle of nowhere. So for instance, Hawaii and American Samoa and all of these islands out in the middle of the ocean where people came to colonize and to find home in these places. So the navigators traveled to those small and uninhabited islands using wayfinding techniques and knowledge that was passed along by oral tradition, mostly by song. They would sing instructions to each other about how to navigate this vast space of the ocean. And so they used the sun as their main guide, where the sun was rising and where the sun was setting. And at nighttime, of course, you spoke about the stars over the ocean. And so the navigators would use these, but also the winds. They would also pay attention to the birds. Where are the birds flying to and from? Which direction are they going? Because they must ultimately be headed toward land. So they could do this through this constant observation of nature. And they would figure out the refraction patterns of waves. So from very young ages, they would put their babies, their young children into the ocean to sit and to feel the ebb and flow of the tides, the understanding of these refraction patterns. And so those sailors that were navigating started this body intelligence from such a young place in life. It's such a deep knowing for them. So I liken that to this woman, Sylvia Earle. Sylvia Earle, we're going to watch that video, Morgan, if you would pull that up, please. Sylvia Earle, she came to speak here on campus in the March of 2020, just before the pandemic. And she has such a presence. She is known as her deepness. She is now 90 years old, and I'll let her tell a little of the story.
Marine biologist Sylvia Earle has spent more than 4 decades at the forefront of ocean exploration. And at 83, she shows no signs of slowing down. Earle was the first female chief scientist of the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and was named Hero of the Planet in 1998 by Time magazine. In tonight's Brief but Spectacular, she reflects on her passion for the ocean and the planet.
The ocean got my attention when I was about 3 years old. A wave sneaked up behind me and knocked me off my feet, and my mother, kind of the mother of all mothers, instead of racing out to take me out of the ocean forever, saw the big smile on my face and let me run back in. And I've been running back in ever since. 2 words of instruction: breathe naturally. And over the side I went. It took a few seconds, no more, before I felt like I belonged there. 4 decades ago, I had a chance to do some research.
There is a new tool in the sea. It can withstand water pressure to 2,000 feet. Dr. Sylvia Earle is a marine biologist. A question: can scientists use the gym suit for dives beyond 1,000 feet? If successful, she will be the first woman to walk the seafloor beyond 1,000 feet.
We cooked up this idea of going on the nose of the submarine, like the ornament on the hood of a car, together down to the bottom of the ocean, and then I would step off at the maximum depth we could go, which turned out to be about 400 meters, 1,250 feet. Creatures with lights down the side. They look like little ocean liners. They're various kinds of jellies and crustaceans and little squids and the fish. It's like diving into a galaxy of these lights. What's hard is getting people to understand why the ocean matters to them. If the ocean dried up tomorrow, life would also dry up. That's where most of the action on Earth is. It's 97% of the water on Earth. They should know that with every breath they take, every drop of water they drink, the ocean is touching them. You should treat the ocean as if your life depends on it, because it does. My name is Sylvia Earle, and this is my brief but spectacular take on why the ocean matters to all of us.
She's amazing, and you can find additional.
I love how she can convey her passion and the importance of this land. So we think of this part of our land, I should say. We think of this as our world map. This is the very land-centric view of our world. But then we look at like these vast spaces of ocean and how much that just is an incredible span there. Pacific, Atlantic, Southern, Indian, Arctic, they all get named separately when we look at a map, and yet it's all one big body of water. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, and as she said, oceans hold about 97% of the water on Earth. So because of the depths, right? The depths of the ocean is 99% of the space where animals, where things, plants live, the biota, the biosphere. So when scuba divers go down underwater, they can take photos like this. This is a white-tipped reef shark. A friend of mine who was diving in Hawaii sent me these pictures to share with you. White-tipped reef shark, a pair of eagle rays that he saw. But when we go down in the water, we encounter some problems. So she talked about the depths to which she could go because of the pressure that's so great. If we were just swimming without any gear, snorkel and mask is all, you can go down to about 250 feet, but then the pressure becomes too great. And then there are submersibles, right, that can go down in there. So this is the kind that you could go with scuba gear, and again, go to about 250 feet is the maximum, which really isn't very far. And then there's submersibles like this one, or the one that Sylvia Earle was wearing, and those can get us a little bit farther down, but the equipment is tricky. Deep sea creatures have been found at 11,500 feet down in the ocean. All these creatures, so to be that deep, they don't have swim bladders, right? At 500 feet, there's no light and the pressure is enormous. So there are things, crabs, octopi, worms, limpets, and clams, just some of those, and then fish that don't have the oxygen in their bodies. So about 4.5 billion years, the ocean defined Earth. So vast, so big. The microbes, the phytoplankton, the fish, the whales, all of those other creatures, like an orchestra playing in great harmony. The ocean has been the great stabilizing factor of nature for billions of years. And now it's more so that humans are changing. There's a dimension of changing that dynamic. There's less and less harmony of the ocean. So we're going to walk through some of these challenges that the ocean realm is facing, so that we understand how many different points are connecting. For instance, in your map that you're going to make, your concept map, all those points are connecting to different things. So this is why someone just talked about how off the coast of California, the waters are so cold. Well, because these are the ocean currents that we're following. So as the air warms up, the currents of water warm up when they're near the equator, all of the sun, all of the warmth there. And then it comes around and then comes up into the Arctic. And that's why the coast of California is so chilly. The waters there are surprisingly chilly compared to that of the Atlantic Ocean, where here they're coming up from the equator and we get these warm temperatures. But those ocean currents are doing a lot of different things. They're carrying our weather, right? They are determining a lot of the factors of weather. They're carrying the winds, they're carrying the currents. It's like a conveyor belt transporting warm water and precipitation around the globe this way. And so they're moving other things too. When we look at what else it's carrying, we can see that this, so go back. We're going to look specifically at this circle right here in this image. So here we are, California, North Pacific, and the current is going this direction. So around the equator and then goes over here. So what's happening is that those ocean currents are also carrying trash. This is the North Pacific Garbage Patch is what it's now called. And so there's the western part, there's some along the northern part, and then the eastern part, because these are gyres. The energy is getting caught up in these cycles in those places. This was discovered in 1997, actually by this gentleman, Charles Moore. As he was floating out there on his way back to the coast of California in his boat, he discovered this eastern garbage patch. And what's happening is that the more trash that goes into the ocean, particularly plastics, is that they get caught in the center of the spiral. And those things aren't moving. They're just stuck there as the current is moving them around and collecting. So in this spot, microplastics, Doug mentioned microplastics when we talked about birds last week. Microplastics make up 94% of an estimated 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic in the patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not the only marine trash vortex, it's just the biggest. About the size, twice the size of Texas, just there, trash floating around. Nearly every molecule of plastic that has been created is still on Earth somewhere. Plastic cannot truly be recycled or made into anything else, and it's not going away. It's estimated by 2050 there will be more plastics by weight in the ocean than there are fish in the ocean. So this is becoming quite a challenge. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a later class, is that plastic production from 1950 to 2019, and then it's just continuing to go up. The idea that we are using plastic so much, for so many different things. So 440 million tons produced in 2025. Globally, humans buy 1 million plastic bottles per minute. 1 million plastic bottles per minute. And 91% of all plastic is not recycled. So this has some pretty long-lasting and deep effects. This is the beach on the island of Munkar. It's Munkar on the island of Java. 400-yard wide, mile-long stretch of sand was deep in foul-smelling sauce packets, shopping bags, diapers, bottles, and bags, plastic clothes, and detergent bottles. Bulldozers had cleared away and buried some of the huge mat of plastic and sand 2 years ago, but ever since, the tides have continued to wash up more from the ocean. Now it's disturbing their fishing processes, not just the plastic itself, which is a problem, but it's also getting in the propellers of the boats, and they're unable to really clear it away. So an organization called Project Stop has empowered people and created change to work toward reducing this plastic problem. And it takes a lot of people together. So being years ago now on the coast of Galveston, on the coast of Texas, and they have trash bins about every 50 yards. There's a trash bin asking people to pick up things that are being washed in. And so people walking along the beach were putting things in, except not that many people were actually doing that process. So how can we address this kind of invasion of plastics? There are people doing it in different ways all over. And I ask you to take in this video. Morgan, if you can start this one there for me. And don't look away. Take it in, please.
Do we have the courage to face the realities of our time? And allow ourselves to feel deeply enough that it transforms us and our future? Come with me on a journey through the eye of beauty. Across an ocean of grief. And beyond.
So plastic in the ocean releases sulfuric scent that tells the seabirds to forage. It's the same kinds of smells as what they would be searching for, hunting for, fish and crabs and krill. And this olfactory cue tricks the birds into confusing marine food with the plastic and vice versa. If it smells like food and looks like food, then it must be food. So an estimated 90% of seabirds swallow some level of plastic, according to the Atlantic magazine in 2022. So the ones that have the more scenic, the very keen sense of smell, the tube-nosed seabirds such as petrels and albatross, they are the ones that are mostly affected. So think back to the birds class, and Doug talked about being an albatross. They have a wingspan of 9 feet, and they glide over the ocean almost effortlessly. And yet they are in peril because of what's going on in the oceans. And it's not just birds either. This whale was found beached with 400 pounds of plastic in its stomach. And so consider plastics. What is it? It's our market that's driving the consumption of plastics. How we consume food and beverage and clothing and all the detergents and all the things that we get that are in plastic. That's been quite a revolution over the course of the last decades. And plastics aren't the only challenge that the ocean realm is facing. Longline fishing, I'm not trashing fishing. Fishing has been a part of human existence for as long as humans have been around. It's a matter of choosing how we do it. How do we acquire the food that we want from the ocean? It's evolved like so many things in the name of efficiency. So these long lines of fish hooks can be over 50 miles long. So if you think about fishing, going out with fishing with your brother, your dad, your mom, your grandma over time, it's a very different kind of fishing when you attend to the hook that's in front of you, not to the 50 miles of hooks that are behind your boat. So this is how that works. They send those hooks out there and then they pull in everything that is caught on the line, and it all ends up just like these trawlers. They get pulled behind the ocean liners, and trawling is the single most dangerous thing that happens in our oceans on the continental shelf. So again, pulling behind a net, a huge net, a net that can fit 13 super jets inside of it, and you're pulling it along the bottom of the ocean floor and just catching whatever happens to be in the net. This is a photo from space, satellite photo, and those lines are where the trawlers have traveled. These super trawlers are active in all of the oceans around the world, or the whole ocean, I should say. Shipping and fishing vessels have multiplied the levels of low frequency noise in the oceans by 32-fold. So they've not only are making marks like this, not only trapping all the things that aren't meant to be trapped, but they're also increasing the noise pollution under the water. So before and after, pulling up everything in its path. And what they catch is what they catch. These piles of fish might be what they're going for, but the piles of things that they catch, this is called bycatch. The things that they don't mean to catch, but do anyway. If a baby dolphin is caught in the net, then the mother dolphin will stay with it and they will both drown often. So bycatch is this word, the things they're catching by accident. And it can be pretty heart-wrenching. So when we're thinking about Sylvia Earle and the story, her passion, she says 90% of the big fish are gone. This statement from her is pretty powerful. We can be the saviors of humankind. I say humankind because life will go on with us or without us. It did before and it can after. It just won't be the same assemblage of life. We're already altering pieces of the puzzle. We've lost a lot of species due to our actions. When we destroy a coral reef, we lose its residents, all the unique species that evolved there and nowhere else in the universe. For example, some species of lizardfish have a very limited range, or shrimp-like creatures called stomatopods have unique eyes that see a much broader spectrum of light than humans can, the broadest spectrum we've been able to identify in any creature. So we destroy the reef and we lose that piece of the puzzle. We'll never have a complete picture again. So the story of disconnect, of separation, right? The ocean as a resource instead of all of the appreciation that you all spoke about earlier. It's like a concept map. All these relationships build a web. Everything is dependent on and balance everything else. And that's very true of the species, right? How species extinctions, Doug talked about this related to birds, but it's also true for amphibians and reptiles and mammals and fish and insects, that we're experiencing a vast extinction period of time. So this brings up for me and might bring up for you also a lot of emotion. What happens when we slow down and take in the stories, right? What happens when we slow down and see the connections? So when you look at each of these fish, it's a school of fish, except that when you look at each of them, they're all different. Looking at the lines, looking at the shading, looking at, right? And they've been traveling together. They're individuals. They know their places and spaces. They have their migration routes. They know where to find food. They know where their homes are, the reefs where they live. They are familiar with the other beings that live in those. It's not very unlike the neighborhoods that we live in. You know where your grocery store is, that you know where the food is in the grocery store that you like. You move through your neighborhood, and these fish move through their neighborhoods. Not commodity, not big business. They're individuals. Sylvia Earle, again, she says, a lot of people excuse their bad behavior toward fish by saying, oh, they don't feel pain. That's nonsense. Fish have all the equipment that we do to feel pain. She says, don't make up stories to try to spare your conscience. You either choose to inflict pain on other creatures or you don't. So what happens when we open ourselves to seeing fish and sea creatures with new eyes? So take a moment and talk to your neighbor about what you are thinking and feeling right now. Would anyone like to speak to what you talked about, what you're thinking and feeling? Okay. I'd like to go back to the beginning of class where some of you spoke to your feelings about the ocean. Some of those words really resonated with me and make me think of this word, right? Of love. When you think of it as magical, when you think of it as comforting, when you think of it as supporting and stilling, right? All of those things really resonate for me in the definition of love. James T. Farrell of St. Olaf College has a definition for love that I'd like to share with you. He says that when you love something or someone, you want to be physically near it. When you love someone or something, you want the best for it all the time. When you love someone or something, you fear its loss and grieve for its injuries. When you love someone or something, you want to know everything about it, its story, its moods, what it looks like by moonlight. When you love someone or something, you want to protect that thing fiercely and are helpless to do otherwise. Those are his 5 parts of love in that definition. And I feel like I am compelled to add one more to this list. I want to be my best for that thing or that person that I love. I want to show up in my full capacity for that thing or that person. And so then how can we be our best for this thing, this ocean that we love, or for the sea turtles that you love, or for seeing the stars that you love? How do you show up fully and be your best for those things? We haven't deliberately tried to hurt the ocean. Just over time, that's what's happened as a result of our actions, as a result of not knowing. And yet here we are in this place and time where we do know what's happening, where we have a choice of how we're going to move forward and the things that we're going to do, the things that we are going to make, the connections that we're going to build. It's all connected. What happens if we realize that we're not alone in our love for these things? Whatever your thing is, be it birds or the ocean or the landscapes or the trees or the whatever it is, or the connections with other people. How is it that we can go in this together? Here's just one example of some people making some change. So Trash Hero is an organization that's working all over the world. It's just one of many organizations that if you feel so inclined, you can be part of, right? We are never alone in these situations. Would you just advance that for me, Morgan? The Hawaiians have a phrase, like this: Laulima, no task is too big when done together by all. Laulima, the idea that we are not alone. Broken down, the word lau means much or many, and lima means hands. When we all pitch in on a project together, many hands make light work. So the power in making change is about becoming aware and choosing to act and joining in with others who are like-minded with you, those who are inspired to make change. So how is it that you have that opportunity, whether it be for the oceans or the thing that you love? How will you be the best for that thing? So I'd like you to talk to your partner for a moment. What is your thing? What is something that you feel as though might benefit from your action, from your care, from your love? So that's a very quick conversation, and I hope it's one that you'll continue in your labs, continue with your friends, continue with your families about those connections and how to show up with your love fully on. So your question for this week will be posted right after class, and the question is, why care? I hope that you have a beautiful day. Thank you very much. Caffeine helped today, I think. I'm also like